Have you ever thought about how the Constitution of India, one of the longest and most detailed in the world, came into existence? Who were the minds behind it? What historical events led to its creation? Let's know the complete and detailed story of India's Constituent Assembly, the body that gave us our constitution and defined the foundation of modern India. So, firstly, let's begin by understanding the situation before the Constituent Assembly came into existence. India was under British colonial rule for almost 200 years, and during this time, Indians had very limited political rights and major decisions about their land were made by the British. The Indian freedom movement that began with the 1857 revolt initiated by Mangal Pandey had started gaining momentum. Political leaders like Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose, and many others began demanding Swaraj or self-rule. Now, here's an important event. In 1934, the idea of a constituent assembly was first proposed by M.N. Roy, a revolutionary and political thinker. He believed that India needed a constitution that reflected the will of the Indian people and not something handed down by the British. By 1935, the Indian National Congress, India's largest political party at that time, officially adopted this idea. However, instead of accepting this, the British passed the Government of India Act of 1935. Now, what was the Government of India Act of 1935? It was a British-made law that gave some power to Indian provinces, but the British still controlled the most important parts of governance. Indians had no say in the central government, defense or foreign affairs. It was just like being invited to dinner but told you can only smell the food, not eat it. That's how much say Indians really had. This angered Indian leaders and calls for full independence increased. Then came World War II in 1939, which you may of course call the European War as well. Britain badly needed India's support to win the war. Why? Because India was not just a colony. It was a huge asset. India had one of the largest volunteer armies in the world. More than 2 million Indian soldiers fought for the British. It supplied essential resources like cotton, iron, tea, food grains, and more. It even helped fund the war. By the end of the war, Britain owed India more than 1.3 billion pounds. India's location was also important for military strategy in Asia to control the Indian Ocean and defend against Japanese expansion in Asia. Our land acted as a military base for them. But here's the catch. Britain declared India was at war without even asking Indian leaders. This angered many, especially the Congress party, who demanded a promise of real independence in return for support. So in 1942, the British sent Sir Stafford Cripps with what is known as the Cripps Mission. Now, what was the Cripps mission? The British offered that after the war, India could become a dominion, that is, a semi-independent country within the British Empire. Why am I saying within the British Empire has to be noted? And India could draft its own constitution. But this plan gave no immediate power and had many conditions, so Indian leaders rejected it. But what actually were the conditions put forward by the British which led to rejection by the Indians? Firstly, India would get the right to frame its own constitution only after the war was over, not before, hence no immediate independence. And of course, at this point in time, Indians had no reason to trust the British. Secondly, India wouldn't be fully independent. It would still remain within the British Commonwealth as a dominion like Canada or Australia at that time. Third, provinces like Punjab or Bengal and princely states would choose not to join the Indian Union and instead form separate unions or remain independent. That is, they were given the right to secede, which means they were allowed to go their own way or break off all ties with India. This raised fears of a divided India. Fourth, the British Governor General would continue to have full control over defense and military matters during the war. Now, even after all these conditions, wherein the Britishers created a win-win situation for them, it's quite ironical how they expected Indians to support their war. So these conditions made Indian leaders feel that the British were not serious about granting real freedom. It was like offering the illusion of choice, a sugar-coated delay tactic that eventually led to rejection. This frustration gave rise to what is known as the Quit India movement. Now, what was the Quit India movement? Launched by Mahatma Gandhi in August 1942, it was a mass protest demanding an end to British rule. The slogan was simple: do or die. And as usual, the British responded with force and arrested thousands of leaders. After the Second World War ended in 1945, Britain was exhausted financially and politically. It was clear that they couldn't hold on to India for long, so they sent the cabinet mission in March 1946.
At New Delhi, the three-member cabinet mission begins its historic quest to find a solution to India's political deadlock. One of the largest press conferences in Indian newspaper history, and after the conference, Mr. Alexander chatted with newspapermen, while his colleagues, Sir Stafford Cripps and Lord Pethick Lawrence, edged their way to the door to escape the barrage of questions.
Now, what was the cabinet mission? It was a group of 3 British ministers sent to India to discuss how India would transition to self-rule. The mission proposed a constituent assembly made up of Indian representatives who would draft the Constitution of India. Now, you would think, how come Britishers are thinking of India's welfare? Well, nothing was out of concern for Indian welfare. They actually had their own reasons. Like, they wanted a reputed and peaceful exit after looting the entire nation. They wanted a stable India post-withdrawal to protect trade routes, military bases, and geopolitical leverage to benefit themselves. Post-World War II, Britain was economically weak, under US pressure to decolonize, and faced growing unrest from India's independence movement. Apart from this, the Labour Party in Britain, which came to power in 1945 with Clement Attlee as its leader, who served as Britain's PM from 1945 to 51, was more open to granting independence and included this in their manifesto as well. Now, this was the breakthrough India had been waiting for. The Constituent Assembly first met on 9th of December 1946 in New Delhi. The first session was boycotted by the Muslim League, which was demanding a separate nation, Pakistan. Despite this, the assembly began its work. Who led the assembly? Dr. Sachidanand Sinha was the temporary chairman for the first meeting. Later, Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected as the permanent president of the Constituent Assembly. How were members chosen? The assembly had 389 members originally. 292 from British Indian provinces, 93 from princely states like Hyderabad, Mysore, etc., 4 from the Chief Commissioner provinces. Members were not elected by the people directly. Instead, they were elected by members of provincial legislative assemblies, which were partially elected bodies. Why am I saying these provincial legislative assemblies partially elected is because at that time, only a limited number of people were allowed to vote for them based upon certain qualifications like ownership of property or land, payment of a certain amount of tax, educational qualifications, income level. These people accounted for only 10 to 12% of the Indian population. So while technically an election happened, most of the Indian population had no say in choosing Constituent Assembly members. However, as a result of the partition under the Mountbatten Plan of 3rd June 1947, a separate Constituent Assembly was set up for Pakistan, and representatives of some provinces ceased to be the members of the Indian Assembly. After the partition in 1947, when Pakistan was created, the number of members was reduced to 299. The assembly had people from all walks of life: lawyers, teachers, social workers, freedom fighters, and women, ensuring diversity. The assembly created many committees to focus on specific subjects. The most important was the Drafting Committee, formed on 29th of August 1947 and headed by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar.
So far as the ultimate goal is concerned, I think none of us need have any apprehension. None of us need have any doubt. But my fear, which I must express clearly, is this. Our difficulty, as I said, is not about the ultimate future. Our difficulty is how to make the heterogeneous mess that we have today.
The Constituent Assembly met for 11 sessions over 3 years, precisely 2 years, 11 months and 17 days, and debated the Constitution for 165 days in total. What influenced the Indian Constitution? It was not created in isolation. The makers studied many constitutions from around the world, from Britain, parliamentary system, from US, fundamental rights and the independence of judiciary, from Ireland, directive principles of state policy, from Canada, federal structure with a strong center, from Germany or the Weimar Constitution, emergency provisions. But they didn't just copy, They adapted ideas to fit India's needs and realities. Several topics were debated in the assembly, like citizenship rights, official language, what rights should every citizen have, how to protect religious, cultural, and linguistic minorities, federalism, division of powers between center and states. When our constitution was completed, the final constitution was adopted on 26 November 1949, which is celebrated as Law Day, and came into effect on 26 January 1950. That's why we celebrate our Republic Day on 26 January every year. Some of the most important members of the assembly were Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, chairman of drafting committee, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, first Prime Minister, presented the objective resolution. I will tell you about it after this. Then there was Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, worked for integration states, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, President of the Assembly and later the first President of India, Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, scholar and educationist, K.M. Munshi, Hansa Mehta, Durgabai Deshmukh, and many others. Now, what's the objective resolution? It was introduced by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru on 13th of December 1946 and was adopted by the Assembly on January 22, 1947. It laid down the principles of the Constitution such as justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity, which later became the inspiration for the preamble of our Constitution. The Constitution gave India a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, universal adult franchise, that is, every citizen over 18 can vote, fundamental rights like right to equality, freedom, religion, etc., directive principles to guide government policy, and independent judiciary to protect rights, federalism, that is, sharing of power between center and states. It also provided a process for amendments, allowing the Constitution to change with time. Dr. Ambedkar wisely said, "The Constitution is not a mere lawyer's document. It is a vehicle of life, and its spirit is always the spirit of the age." The Constituent Assembly was more than just a legislative body. It was a symbol of India's aspiration to be free, equal, and just. It gave us the most powerful tool of democracy, our Constitution. So the next time you enjoy your rights as an Indian, remember the 299 visionaries who spent nearly 3 years drafting the foundation of our nation.